Ray, I got a question for you. A lot of people ask, and I explain it to them, but I know a lot of listeners probably want to know. There's so much in our industry about fungal infections, and you got Doug Kaufman promoting the fungal diet, and you got people just diagnosing themselves left and right because they have dandruff or bloating, and a lot of people think it's about, because Doug Kaufman says mycotoxins feed on sugar, so take out sugar and you starve the mycotoxins. I know you have a different view on this. Can you elaborate a little bit on? You just did a little bit, maybe why you get the overgrowth in the GI system, and why we have Candida in our GI system.
I used to read periodically in the newspapers about someone. I think the first one that was reported around the world was a Japanese man who everyone thought he was a drunk, but when doctors examined him carefully, they found that when he ate sugar, he would start emitting alcohol fumes, and they found that his yeast were growing in his stomach even. His digestive enzymes were so weak that the organisms weren't killed by stomach acid and enzymes. And usually on average, there's one case or so somewhere in the world actually getting drunk when they eat sugar from so many yeasts living high up in their intestine. But getting drunk is really the only major harm done by that. The real problem is that their digestion is so poor from being low thyroid that probably all they need is to take some thyroid and activate their digestive enzymes. That would probably spontaneously get rid of the yeast and bacteria problem. But I think it was René Dubose who did some experiments showing that with a given yeast in the intestine, when it's starved for the sugar that it needs to thrive, it sends out, I think they're called pseudohyphae, filaments, several times their diameter in length, but long enough to reach through the intestine wall where they can get sugar from the bloodstream. And so they actually become invasive when they're starved for sugar. But if you feed them sugar, they don't put out those adhesive invasive filaments, and they just are happy living on sugar. And so a sugarless diet is really a dangerous thing for someone to do if they have a yeast problem. And besides its direct effect on the yeast, when you avoid sugar, you're having the risk of not giving your liver the sugar it needs to activate the thyroid hormone, and so you're tending to make the hypothyroid problem worse, especially if you eat foods that are rich in the polyunsaturated fats. It happens that fungus loves unsaturated fat, but can be killed by saturated fats.
Right.